Hey Geminis, and welcome to your January 2018 General Tarot Forecast. This is Sky here to give you guys hopefully another amazing reading for your month ahead. And for Gemini, you guys are forming a lot here. It's not really a great period of time to be completely overwhelmed by much or to have too much on your plate. It does feel like you're facing a lot though. Here we are in January, Geminis, and Saturn is no longer in Sag. And I think that for some of us, it's like, how do we wake up to this? How do we realize? How do we start to learn to walk in life without this really strong Saturnian presence in the same way? It really starts by realizing how much has gone in your favor and how much more intuitive the energy may start to be for you, Geminis. I really sense like a lot of new financial energy coming in, a lot of new tangible energy coming in for you, which may have been what you needed all along, because I think that one of the difficult constructs that Gemini was working with over the last 2 years dealt with like the non-tangible aspects of life. I think a lot of Geminis were like, well, I'm not concerned about money, I'm not concerned about job energy or career energy because that's always been second nature. And I think that the last 2 years really came in to like redefine, the relationship energy, to redefine the non-tangible aspects of life. And you may have come out of that feeling like you didn't make much progress. At the same time, it feels like you've made so much. So definitely delve into any constructs that you've formed within yourself which deal with convincing yourself that you've been a failure when you were actually very successful. Delve into any concepts that you've built within yourself which deal with submersion, or it's sort of an archetype that I like to talk about a lot, where you make an experience much more difficult so that you can gain strength through it. It's sort of like an emotional or energetic conditioning, sort of like the whole idea of exercise, like you put pressure onto the muscles to make them gain strength. I do feel like Gemini might kind of be caught up in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm going to go like Rambo with this whole thing, or I'm going to go like really deep with this breakup or this difficult energy that I've had, and I'm going to make it that much harder on myself so I can come out that much stronger. And it feels like that kind of needs to end and culminate now, because it feels like there will be new ways of gaining strength. So I would definitely take January to pull back in some way that you can, or to not need to at least spend as much energy as you have. I think that Gemini can like do a lot more in January, or like put a lot more content out, or do more work, but actually take less time with it, or for it to be less energetically consuming is important, because there needs to be something pulled back. You have a lot of kind of stressful energies, and actually all minor arcana and court cards, no major arcana. So what January really feels like to me is like a breath of air, finding the essence of your life, finding the small things, dealing with the small things, not needing a huge like explosive jolting experience to like change the direction on your path, but really like a pull back and an inhale and exhale, learning how to breathe, learning what oxygen is, accepting some benevolences. You have a lot of 8 energy. You have 7, 8, and 9 in your energy. So you've got like a chronological order working there. You've got 2 aces, amazing. Something very strong will start here in January, but ultimately pull back and maybe burst in small ways, and do really energetic consuming things in small ways, but allow yourself to cope from what the last 2 years has been, Gemini. You will really do yourself a favor by being able to breathe and being able to cope from that. And to get into your week to week, in the first week, Geminis, you guys have Page of Swords reversed, rooted down by Ace of Wands reversed. So something about like your nature as a person, or the way that you've been for a long time, might sort of feel like it's not right anymore. And I've actually sensed this for everyone a little bit. Like each sign I think is going through this in their own way, where there's sort of this realization like, okay, this is the person that I've been for a long time, and I can sort of see where I'm walking to, into this like new persona, into this new identity almost. But at the same time, I want to be able to take with me what's good and leave behind the bad. It might be feeling like you're seeing a lot of new bad aspects about yourself, or that you're seeing a lot of new things that you don't like, or maybe things which you once convinced yourself that were the great aspects of you now feel like problematic, or now feel in reverse to you, because Page of Swords is very much a you card, Gemini. Like that's your energy. So other Geminis could be falling out with you, or other air signs could be falling out with you. One way or another, definitely see like these aspects that now of your personality, which now may not feel as grand as they used to, and sort of think like, why? Like, what has caused me to now feel that this way of being that I once sort of embodied, how and why do I no longer like this, or why do I want to change it, and what am I willing to replace it with, and is that going to end up being something that was like this before? Because it all feels like it comes back to some sort of creative expansion. Ace of Wands deals with new cycles of creativity, new cycles of passionate energy, which is in reverse for you as well. So like for those of you who are very creative individuals, like maybe your content or your product is no longer feeling like the way that you want to do it anymore. And I would definitely capitalize on that, because Gemini is actually in a really wonderful place to change the game, or to change the way that you speak, the way that you deliver your content, the way that you push out into the world. Because actually with the whole Saturn and Sagittarius cycle that was so difficult over the last 2 years, the thing with that is it may have caused that type of energy, this sort of outward burst, to be something which couldn't really ever last, or to be something which needed to change. So especially for those of you who have like any Sagittarius, or who are like in relationships with Sagittarius, I would definitely think about like, how can I take this amazing catalyst energy, which Saturn and Sag definitely was, over the last 2 years, and how can I maybe redefine or restructure with Saturn and Capricorn now that burst of energy into something which is more wholesome and more relative to who I want to be and what I want to be. Which sort of leads you into the second week, 8 of Wands, you're down by 8 of Swords, to 8 cards. Confronting a lot, confronting, again, at a deeper level, who you've been and who you want to be. Very, very personal, very introverted type of energy in January, Geminis. Looking at excess, looking at windfalls, and looking at over the last 2 years, like what blessings have come through and what curses have come through, and how what you may have once thought could have been blessings maybe became curses, and vice versa, and how ultimately maybe some of the blessings that you encountered feel like they are now constraining you, or maybe you feel imprisoned by the abundance which you may have had over the last 2 years. Definitely explode out of it, burst out of it, become free, and try to not over concern yourself with things that have become good which may be bad, because I think Gemini has just really developed this philosophic insight, or this philosophic ability, because that's what Sagittarius is, it's the higher mind, the philosophical ability, seeing polarities in life and different, being able to interpret things in many different ways. I feel that a lot of Geminis have sort of become like polyglots of energetic language. You can sort of see everything from every different perspective. I would definitely, again, do yourself a favor by developing a new focus within yourself, and developing a new single perspective that maybe encompasses many of these perspectives which you've gained, and turns it into something which you can actually structure into a way that leaves you feeling less extended in so many different ways. To be a little bit more specific with that, like I think the way that you look from so many different perspectives right now leaves you feeling very barren and like lacking in identity for some of you, because you have to switch perspectives so much to understand why things are happening. It's like you understand why things are happening, but the process of getting there, like the vehicle of perspective switching that you have to use to get there, is perhaps draining or sapping a lot of the good which you have to reap from understanding the moral of the story. So I feel that by pulling in these new perspectives that you found, and shaping it in an entire identity within yourself which encompasses all of them, you become like this amazingly powerful being, sort of infinite, because 2 8s together, it's like the infinity sign, it's like double infinity. And there's something that becomes infinite and timeless about your energy, Gemini, understanding humanity and understanding the power of, money, people, relationships, love, tantric energy, I want to say as well. Beautiful, actually amazing, I want to say like evolution happening there, Geminis. In the third week, you guys have Queen of Swords, you're done by Ace of Swords. Amazing, amazing. This is exactly what you need. Coming out of the second week, sort of realizing this new identity which has to form, which is you, I love the symmetry there, the way that Ace of Swords kind of goes straight up into Queen of Swords, like both of the swords sort of align. So you are wielding a very strong power, Gemini. You are way more powerful than you realize, because I actually sense like something that might feel a little bit meek, or something that might feel actually a little bit like, oh, I'm so powerless in the face of this mechanism which has been developed around me, when in reality it's like you hold a weapon which is much more powerful than what many other people have. So be careful on how you use it. In fact, I feel that for those of you who have positions of power, for those of you who like manage many people, or for those of you who many people look up to, you can cause a lot of damage if you're not very careful with your words. Be very careful with your words and very careful with your communicative abilities right now. Even just like the smallest, I want to say, harshness within your voice or within your tone can really like destroy people's futures, I want to say. And as well, any kind of false like buildup or false complimenting or anything like that it's like maybe you go over to a friend's house or something and they cook dinner for you, and like they cook you some kind of like a dessert or like cake for dessert, and you taste it and it's really terrible, but because you like don't want to hurt anyone, because again, all these perspectives, and you don't want to cause pain to people, you're like, oh my god, this is the best cake I've ever had. And then all of a sudden that like inspires that person to like become a chef and to like mass market this cake recipe, when in reality it's like a terrible product. It's like your words have this kind of power right now. Sorry for the like ridiculous proverbial example, but this type of thing can definitely happen with Gemini. Like you can compliment people when you don't mean it and make them really think that they have something that they do not. And vice versa as well. It's like you can like say someone that you really dislike makes like the best cake in the world, and you're like, it's okay, it's not really the greatest thing, then they can like really be discouraged and like never make cakes again or something. And you really have to like apply this type of like terrible proverbial hypothetical experience to like a lot of different possibilities in your life, and really try to speak your truth and speak honestly and inspire people in a responsible way, because inspiration can be kind of actually a dangerous archetype to work with. Again, like by falsely complimenting or falsely insulting, it generates a lot for other people. So I think the real moral of this story for Gemini is that you just are generating a lot of energy for others. So in this way, it can be good to be in solitude, again, to be pulling back and working on like yourself and generating things for yourself this month for sure. In the fourth week, you guys have Seven of Swords rooted down by Nine of Wands reversed. And I see that. I see how when you're given this kind of power, when you're given this kind of weapon, I almost want to say, to generate so much for yourself and others, you know, you start to attract people who want to take advantage of that. It's interesting to again see the symmetry from the third week, and then sort of see like the Seven of Swords figure as well. It's like you have all these powers and you have all of these abilities, and there's someone in your life potentially who's really trying to like run away with it, or trying to really like, okay, you have these swords, give them to me. Watch out for people who compliment you too much, I want to say too. And don't need compliments from other people. I think it will be an important time to not really need that many compliments from many other people. I think seeing Gemini sustaining themselves right now at a complimentary level is really important. And I feel like that's a big danger, because I think that Seven of Swords really only becomes a powerful thing when you're like trusting people too much, like trusting people that you shouldn't trust. Because I always say that betrayal only comes from uncalculated trust. Remember this, Gemini's, betrayal only comes from uncalculated trust. And Seven of Swords is starting to build up into that betrayal archetype that we see in the 8, 9, and 10. And you do have 8 here as well. So I would definitely look around and see who's got my best interests at heart. Don't get crazy with it. Don't start thinking, oh my gosh, this person who's never actually been bad to me must have like terrible wants for me in life. So don't be crazy with it, but look at potentials and look at realities and see who may actually not be out for your best interest. It's rooted down by Nine of Wands reversed. So, you know, it's getting old. I know it's getting old to see this theme of like betrayal and not knowing who to trust come up. But it's not really a strong theme for the future. You know, we're still having a bit of residual Sagittarius energy with the Mercury retrograde. December was crazy, Geminis. As someone who has a lot of Sagittarius, I get it. Trust me, like these readings have been a trial. I've probably done 30 or 40 readings here in December for January, just because of the technical difficulties. Y'all have probably heard the microphone messing up, and I so apologize for that, but I just have to get something out, you know. I've done like 3 months worth of readings just to get like January out, like Mercury retrograde, oh my gosh. But I'm happy to do it, and I've realized how I've needed to see like all these different ways, and each of these readings has kind of transformed throughout the entire time that I have done so many readings. And like, I'm sure that you guys have had a similar thing. Like, whatever you've been trying to produce and put out in life may have felt like it's not coming, and it's enduring, right? It's like building your endurance. So really take that as a blessing, and take like any difficulties as like conditioning. And maybe this sort of comes back in, like, you've been doing so much self-conditioning, it's like there's enough from the outer world, there's enough conditioning elsewhere, so you can really start being softer with yourself. Ace of Cups being your central theme, Gemini, I mean, like, wow. It all comes back to love with Ace of Cups, and all of these sort of polarities that you're dealing with shaping up in the entire month of January comes back to your definition of love and your definition of abundance emotionally. It could be a month of waterworks, honestly. Like, I sense a lot of tears, but they could also be tears of joy as well. Ace of Cups is not reversed, and I always think like very hard crying or like sad crying is more of an Ace of Cups reversed. But I do sense that some of you Geminis will receive something that you never expected, or it's like someone that you never thought would come through for you really surprises you and comes through for you, and they're like tears of joy, like movie type of moments. You may start to feel like your life becomes a movie, and honestly, just more hormonal health as well. I do feel like with Gemini and Sagittarius, all the mutable signs to an extent, Saturn and Sag like really hit the hormones and really hit the like chemical reactions in the body in a very destabilizing way. So I do sense you becoming more wholesome and more hormonally and chemically balanced. So that's just a wonderful thing to hear for all of us. And just allow the natural emotions to come through, and allow the natural emotions to heal and breathe this month. And allow slowness too. Like, it doesn't have to be like, try not to be too impulsive, try not to be too sudden. A lot of damage was caused in December by impulsivity and sudden movements and sudden actions, a lot of disorientation. So really take this time here in January to reorient yourself, to resurface and make smoother your energetic experience. So if you guys would like any assistance or would like to consult me one-on-one, you can always book a private reading with me. That should be popping up in the center of your screen. You guys can also subscribe and check the description box for social media links and other exciting things. Your likes and comments make my day. I hope this reading resonated and that it was technically a sound experience, because Lord, let me tell you, this Mercury retrograde. But anyway, I love you guys, and I will be talking to you in February. Bye.